Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another thrilling Canby Planning Commission meeting for September 26, 2022. As always, we will call to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. If you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so moving on, we will move on to our second item, which is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
I approve the consent agenda.
I'll
Is there
second.
a second? Who was that?
That was me.
Okay. It was moved by Commissioner Jarosh and seconded by Commissioner Ewert to approve the consent agenda consisting of the draft Planning Commission meeting minutes for the meeting of February 12th, 2022. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposition? The consent agenda is passed unanimously. Moving on to our third item on the agenda, which is always citizen input. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the Planning Commission on non-agenda items. Each person will be given 3 minutes to speak. Staff and the Planning Commission will make every effort to respond to questions raised during citizens input before the meeting ends or as quickly as possible thereafter. Is there anybody on Zoom or in the council chamber who wishes to speak as part on a non-agenda item as part of citizen input tonight?
Chair Padden, we do have one caller. I'm not sure if they're here for the hearing or not. Are they for the hearing, Lainey? Okay, so no, we do not apparently have any non-agenda items, Chair Padden.
Okay, and have we identified the caller for the hearing?
His name's Frank Charbonneau.
Frank Charbonneau. Okay, he's part of the traffic engineer for the consulting team, yeah. Okay.
Traffic engineer. Okay, awesome. So moving on to our next item, we will go to new business, which there is none. So usually that goes pretty quick. And now we will go ahead, enter into our public hearing. Let me get this paperwork here. So the matter presently before the hearing body tonight, DR 22-07 and VAR 22-02 Canby Center remodel and expansion requires a public hearing. All interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on the matter and are present in the chamber, please fill out a testimony card and give it to the recording secretary. When your name is called, please step forward to the microphone. If attending online, please type in the chat your full name and whether you would like to speak as a proponent or an opponent on the matter. At the appropriate time, when your name is called, please unmute yourself. In all cases, please state your name, address, and interest in the matter for the record. For longer presentation, proponents and opponents may pool time from one another. In so doing, those individuals may allocate their time to a spokesperson who will represent the entire group. In these cases, please include a list with names and addresses of those pooling their time and turn it in with a testimony card listing the spokesperson's information. All questions must be directed through the chair. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access and to be entered into the permanent record. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable review criteria as indicated in the staff report, the comprehensive plan, or the applicable land use regulations which the person believes apply to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the participant and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government to respond to the issue may preclude an action for damages in circuit court. Every person present is encouraged to testify, even if only to concur with previous testimony. As a review, the public hearing will be formatted as follows. City staff will give a brief report regarding the application. The hearing body will ask any questions of staff regarding the report. the chair will open the public hearing for testimony. The applicant will be given not more than 20 minutes to present on the application. Proponents and opponents will then speak in that order for not more than 3 minutes each. The applicant will then be given 10 minutes for rebuttal. The hearing body will ask any final questions of staff and the applicant. The chair will then close the public hearing for new testimony. The hearing body will deliberate on the application with no additional testimony unless specifically allowed by the chair. This may result in the reopening of the public hearing. The decision shall be made by the hearing body at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. Does anyone have any questions regarding the procedure that has been outlined for the hearing for this hearing? Fantastic. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest to please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate in or abstain from hearing the present matter. Anybody on the any commissioner have a conflict of interest? Seeing none?
No.
If any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to the hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Anybody? Okay. Does any member of the audience in the chamber or online have any questions of any commissioner regarding conflicts of interest or ex parte contact? If so, please direct them to the chair at this time. Wonderful. We are screaming right through this. So with that, I will now turn it over and to I'm sorry, what is you're the newest member of the, what is your name again? Sorry.
Emma Porcolo.
Emma Porcolo?
Yep, that's it.
Okay, I will now turn things over for our staff report to Emma Porcolo.
Okay, let me just get. I put my name on the slide just because I wasn't sure people would remember. So welcome everyone. Tonight we are discussing the Canby Center expansion application. It is a site and design review application DR 2207 and a variance application 2202. The application is for a remodel of the existing Canby Center building and an expansion to the south of the existing building. The existing building is a 5,000 square foot, one-story building. The expansion is 2 stories and is about 11,000 square feet. The site is located at 681 2nd Avenue. It is located next to Canby High School. It's 0.73 acres. And as I mentioned already, the applications for tonight are major variance and site design review, which are both type 3 applications, which is why we are here today. So the zoning for the site, there are a few layers of zoning on this site. First, its base zoning is commercial manufacturing zone. Then it is also in the downtown Canby overlay, and within that overlay, it is located in the outer highway sub-area commercial sub-area, excuse me, and staff believes that the use is a permitted use in the CM zone, considering the wide range of uses that are happening on the site and the services that the Canby Center provides. And I wanted to add a clarifying slide here. The ownership of the streets around the site is a little bit interesting, and the usage of the streets, so it's not, let's see if I can change it. No. So Southwest 2nd Avenue is a public street that is owned by the city. Then on the west and south side of the site, it is abutted by Southwest 4th Avenue, and that is actually a private street and under the ownership of the school district. And then along the western portion, you'll see I have labeled here that it is a limited access drive, and it's exclusively for Canby High School buses and staff. So it is a very limited access drive, not your typical street, which I think is important for the design context of the building. And here is a list of the applicable criteria for the application. So it's your pretty generic list. We have, parking, the base zoning requirements, the downtown Canby overlay, site and design standards. We have outdoor lighting, site and design review, and landscaping and standards like that in there, and the variance criteria and the application review. And so since I have not very much time tonight, I am going to focus first really on the compliance with the criteria of this application, which most importantly are the site and design review criteria, the DCO criteria, and the variance criteria. So for the site and design review application, as the applicant demonstrated in their application, they meet the matrices for the LID and the site and design review. They have enough points to comply with the requirements. The building design, the materials, the colors are compatible with other buildings you see in the area at the high school, with neighboring commercial uses, and the use itself is very compatible with the area. It goes well with the high school and benefits with the high school. The landscaping on the site meets the minimum requirements. It's 16% landscaped. The minimum requirement is 15%, and they meet all the landscape island parking, the amount of trees, they meet all those standards. And there's adequate and safe bicycle and pedestrian facilities proposed on the site. And one clarification to that, so as I prefaced before, there is private streets, or Southwest 4th is a private street. As such, we have requested a sidewalk along Southwest 4th Avenue. The city does not have street standards that specify sidewalk widths for private streets. However, given the location, its vicinity to the high school, we have requested that there be a 6-foot sidewalk installed along that portion of Southwest 4th Avenue, just along the south edge of the property. We've discussed this with the applicant, and the applicant is willing to build to that standard. However, they recently noted that they have some utility constraints just south of the building to build to that 6-foot standard. So in acknowledgement of that, I have slightly amended the condition of approval that was originally in the staff report related to this. And so I'm requesting tonight, if the Planning Commission agrees, that we slightly amend COA number 6. And the underlined text that you see there is the additions that I'm proposing. So we would specify that this is just that southern portion of the property of Southwest 4th and doesn't include that limited access way, which is really only for vehicle travel and would not make sense to have a sidewalk there. And then also giving them that space to reduce the sidewalk width where the utility constraints exist. So next is the DCO, Development and Design Standards. The applicant has requested 3 variances from different DCO standards, which I will get into in just a minute. And all other DCO standards or their intent have been met. Yes. So the variances on the site, there are 3 variances requested, and I'll give a little bit of brief background on each of them and discuss their compliance with the criteria. So the first variance you can see is pointing to that red dashed line, and the applicant has requested to reduce the parking perimeter landscape screen required from 5 feet to 0 feet and install vertical screening. So instead of having that 5-foot landscape buffer, they would like to kind of go upward with landscape screening, and have provided some visuals that you'll see later tonight. The second variance requested is to reduce the setback along the west property line. The existing building is set back 5 feet, and they would like to continue that 5-foot setback along the expansion. The DCO requires a minimum setback of 10 feet, so it's a 5-foot reduction. And the last one is ground floor glazing standards. Both the west and south facade require 25% ground floor glazing. Both are below that standard. The south is at 0% with some serious constraints in that they are installing the cold storage back there, so it's not conducive to windows. And then along the west facade, it is again this limited access drive, and they've really compensated for the lack of windows there with some additional landscape screens, as well as second floor glazing that is meeting what is required on the ground floor. And so as a whole, these 3 variances are requested, and staff believes that they are met. They meet the criteria of variances. The location and the site characteristics are exceptional circumstances. The location, as I'm sure you'll hear from the applicant, is very important to retain their existing location. It is very close to the high school, which they have a partnership with, and build on that partnership and kind of have a mutually beneficial relationship with that location. And generally the location in Canby near other services and businesses and places for people to visit is very important as well. So we're staying on that site that is already a little constrained. It's a very narrow site. It's bordered by streets on 3 sides. You know, you don't really see a site of this size and this magnitude with that many constraints. And as well as there's a lot going into this one site, and they are really going to maximize it to the best of their abilities. The Canby Center offers a wide range of services at their site, and so it is a unique use in Canby. There really is no other nonprofit or profit business, for that matter, offering the range of uses and the specific uses that the Canby Center does. Where established, the intent of the code is met, and I've already addressed that to some extent. And the applicant proposes mitigation measures to ensure the development is not material detrimental. So as I mentioned, on the west facade, with the lack of glazing, they're proposing landscaping screens. They have second floor glazing on both facades that don't meet the criteria, or the standard, excuse me. On the east facade, or sorry, on the east property line where they're reducing the landscape buffer, they're proposing to install those vertical screens, so that is, you know, a comparable screening. And with the 5-foot setback also on that facade, they're having that landscape screens, which will also help soften that facade that is closer to the school. And I will acknowledge that across from that facade is the part of the Canby High School campus, and they have wrote a letter of support. And yes, and the last is that the variances are the minimum necessary. The applicant has shown that to fit everything that's necessary on the site to meet the operational expansion that they expect and see a need for in the Canby community. This is what's needed to fit both the building, have adequate bike and pedestrian areas, especially being so close to the school, and have enough parking and adequate parking movement on the site. So the minimum necessary are proposed. So with all that, based on the application submitted and the facts and the conclusions of the staff report, planning staff recommend that planning commission approve the application with the subject to the conditions of approval provided in the staff report. And, oh yes, and I wanted to add on to this with the amended condition of approval that I mentioned earlier. Yes. Should I just read the whole letter? So we also received, it did not make it into the planning commission packet because it was received today, but we received a letter of support from Tom Scott, which I will briefly read. To whom it may concern, please accept this letter in support of the Canby Center's site and design review application. First and foremost, the Canby Center is an invaluable asset to our community. TCC serves students and community members in need. TCC has been an incredible partner with the Canby School District, providing programs as reading mentors, backpack buddies, and tutors. TCC also serves adults in need in our community by providing important mentorship, education classes, medical care, food, and clothing. I have watched over the last few years as the leadership of TCC has carefully and thoughtfully planned the expansion that is in front of you. These leaders know the needs of our community and how they can best be served. The location of the site for TCC works well with the proximity to Canby High School and the city's commercial core. The site is narrow and creates some challenges for optimal development. However, TCC leadership and design team has created a development that is user-friendly, accessible, attractive, and overall fits the site well. The design variances being requested are minor. The landscape buffer reduction is adequately addressed by TCC and allows them to create a pedestrian-friendly environment. The reduction in the west setback makes sense. The 5-foot setback will match the existing building. This property line borders a restricted driveway used by CHS, thus very little impact to the public. The reduction of storefront glazing allows TCC to maximize the use of indoor building space on the ground floor while also providing an overall attractive exterior building that will improve the street appeal in the area. I encourage Planning Commission to approve the application as presented. Sincerely, Thomas Scott. And that is what I have for the presentation. Jason, we can't hear you again. He's showing up on the...
These USBs on cards do burn up.
We're having a hard time hearing you. We just can't hear you. We're not sure what the circumstance is. We'll get there. Okay, thanks.
Try now, Jason. Now? See, we're getting it here. I mean, it's coming through. It's this little guy here.
Guys, you trouble? No mic out, or, stereo out?
No headphone out, yeah.
Just this, we
Try that
can't
here
go straight in.
that way.
One more time.
KT, USB audio, see if it does anything.
This one. Unmute your speaker, or increase, here. How do we unmute? It looks like it's mute. See that? It's there, it's coming up now. Something's driving it down. Bad key. Sticky key.
That's what's
Something's
going
weird,
on.
twitchy there. Might be, I don't know.
Jason, now?
That's better in terms of that setting. Nothing still. I know.
That's that USB. Oh, here. Now?
Try your audio settings. Test this.
Well, the problem
Something's driving that down.
with the seat, if I do not participate in the meeting, we aren't able to have a meeting tonight. And so we want to make sure to get this, keep this process moving.
We seem to be able to hear you now.
Oh, you can?
Yes, back again.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so don't anybody touch anything. Okay, just step away from anything technical. Okay, so with that, now that you can hear me, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to any questions from the hearing body for staff regarding the staff report. And tonight, through the Great Lottery, we will start with Commissioner Hutchinson.
I have nothing to say about the project. Looks good to me.
Okay. Commissioner Ewert?
I've got a couple of things, but I think I'm going to hold them for later, Jason.
Okay. Commissioner Jarosh?
Yes, same here. I don't have questions for staff, but I do have other questions.
Okay. For me, in reading through the staff report, I have a little confusion. So on page 4 of the staff report, under project overview, let me get to it. In the 3rd paragraph, it says the site will add an access point onto Southwest 4th Avenue. Both accesses will be entrances and exits, and the Southwest 2nd Avenue will be a left turn only, okay? But if I go down to finding 6 on page 6 of the staff report, it says access to the project site is proposed via the existing 24-foot driveway on Southwest 2nd Avenue and a proposed 20-foot one-way driveway on Southwest 4th Avenue. So is the Southwest 4th Avenue an in and out driveway, or is it a one-way driveway? Or am I reading this incorrectly?
So Jason, on page 4, that is an error. Actually, that should say Southwest 4th Avenue will be a left turn exit only, because that other piece of Southwest 4th is a one-way bus access. So that's why you can't make a right turn when you turn out. But that other piece is also incorrect, because it should be that you can exit and entrance out of the Southwest 4th and access way, but you can only make a left turn when you exit.
So do we need to make some amendments to that, or to fix that in this?
Does it have any bearing on anything other than the description?
No, no.
I had a question on that too.
So Jason, Don says no because it has no bearing on the conditions of approval.
Okay.
But
Well, but if it's in this, if it's in this thing, does that not open it up for them to be able to do either or?
I mean, I guess it does, but it's
if we're approving it to be both ways, but it's supposed to be a one-way, if it's better, so does the traffic study, and I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm now moving into a discussion about that's best for the public hearing. Is that the case, or is this the right place to figure out what this is all about?
Chair Padden, I would request that we give the applicant the opportunity to address that issue during their testimony.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Then that's all the questions I had. So we will now open the public hearing regarding DR 22-07 and VAR 22-02, and I will hand it over to the applicant for their presentation.
We just need to make sure we share the screen on Zoom so people on Zoom can see.
And your time won't start until the first person introduces themselves and gives their address.
Good evening. My name is Ray Keene, and I live in Canby. I have for 7 years at 152 Northeast 9th Avenue. I'm here to share with you tonight about work that the Canby Center is undertaking to prepare now for the needs that will continue to grow in our community. These needs have surfaced in the last 7 years that I've been here, but there are projections that we need to be preparing for now for the coming 20 years. So touching on the needs, about 1 in 10 of our Canby residents lives in poverty. These are folks who face food insecurity. They oftentimes lack consistent access to healthy food. Sometimes they have inconsistencies with regard to jobs and employment. And the projections that I've learned about through the Housing Commission indicate that in the next 20 years, we'll see an additional nearly 6,000 people come into Canby. With that, we can anticipate about 600 folks who will need additional support in our town. The Canby Center meets a lot of those needs currently. We happen to serve a vast number of folks in Canby who are the working poor. That is really our focal point. We serve youth and families, and we're prepared to help in a wide range of ways. We do that currently now, and we see those needs growing. The needs are also specific to certain populations within Canby. So I think it's important to note that about almost 30% of Canby is Hispanic. That population faces poverty at a rate of 3 to 1 compared to our Anglo neighbors. And so the people that the Canby Center serves oftentimes is heavily weighted toward that population. About 70% of those we serve are Hispanic. Looking at our mission, we are a faith-based nonprofit, but we're not pushy with our faith. Our mission statement is, "In God's love, we renew dignity and inspire learning for youth and families." And one of the particular things that is sort of the secret sauce of the Canby Center is that we focus on personal responsibility. So if you're going to come and attend our food pantry, we're going to ask you to volunteer 1 hour per month to participate in that program. We also focus in on long-term solutions to poverty. So we ask people who are joining our Thriving Together program to take a finance class within the first 6 months of the program. We do that in relational ways with folks that help to address their needs and help them focus on long-term dreams, such as first-time homebuyer classes, which we just offered in English and Spanish. In 2022, so far, we've provided over 16,000 services, redistributed over 400,000 pounds of food, and shared 63,000 pounds of clothing with our neighbors in the community. We provide free lunches 4 days a week to anyone who would like one, and have provided nearly 6,000 of those lunches up until this point in time in the calendar year. And we use a lot of volunteers. 404 people have served at the Canby Center since January 1st, giving over 8,000 volunteer hours. We're really proud of the fact that this is a community-led initiative. We focus on youth. One of the ways we do that is our Backpack Buddies food distribution program in partnership with Canby School District, where we provide about 8,000 food packs for kids who lack access to food. We build relationships in the community between children and volunteers. This is a picture of Kids Camp, where we served 196 children this summer in partnership with Canby School District over a 3-week period of time. We also seek to rally the community to provide tools for learning. So, for example, just recently we were able to redistribute 452 new backpacks to kids in the school district who otherwise might not be able to get one. We help families as well. Sometimes that's tangible, practical help with a pair of eyeglasses in partnership with Canby Eye Care, or it might be rent assistance, or it could be dental care in partnership with Medical Teams International. So we serve people in a wide range of ways. Super important for us to focus in on the long-term issues. That's half of our mission, is really focused on the piece that has to do with really inspiring learning. Because if you're going to break the poverty cycle, you have to address it both in the short term and the long term, and that's a big part of what we do. And we're surrounded by a community that supports this work. Over 800 local donors give to the Canby Center every year. In terms of the building project, we're really proud of what we put together. It is a massive undertaking for us, as you might imagine. Kind of looking at it from the top down, you'll see this yellow line really speaks to the need that we have for a sidewalk there to provide accessible access to our entryway for people to be able to come up, to walk up or ride up on a bicycle and access the Canby Center services. To do that, we're simply asking to be able to move those parking spaces just a little bit closer and to provide some vegetation screen that's vertical instead of horizontal. And that will help us to be able to serve people in a greater way. We're adding showers as a part of our service to the community for the first time. And the biggest part really has to do with food redistribution. So On the right side, you'll see food distribution, that's our dried goods storage. And then you'll see refrigeration and walk-in freezer as well. Those spaces, excuse me, I think I'm gonna need some water. Can I steal your water? Those spaces are incredibly important in what we do. During the pandemic, we provided over 1 million pounds of food to the community. That requires forklift. In this case, it will require racking systems to be able to distribute that food. And not just to do it today, but to do it in 10 years and to be able to do that in 20 years. And to do that in a program that builds and strengthens personal responsibility. So you'll see that we have that building at a 5-foot offset from the property line. And it's for that purpose, to be able to share food in the community for the long haul. This is the best shot we've got as a community to get ready for the needs that are coming our way, and to do it in a way that is going to strengthen personal responsibility, not diminish it. We also will have classroom spaces upstairs, which is a key part of what we do in providing life skills classes, finance classes, education around a wide range of topics that help people with just basic relationships and getting stronger in who they are and what they bring to the community. At the top, you'll see kind of what it would look like from that busing lane side. And so you'll see vegetation going up the wall in parts, and you'll see windows added where we can bring those into the equation as well. And then taking a look inside the building for a minute. This is our 1/2 of our upstairs classroom where we'll be doing those life skills classes. And pulling back into the entryway, one of the key parts for us is providing our services in the way that strengthens human dignity. And so you'll see the job center out in front there. Someone will be greeted warmly and welcomed into a well-lit and clean space. When we serve people in a way that's dignified, then people grow in their human dignity and they become a meaningful contributor back to our community. That's what we like to see. And it's part of the reason why we require people to give back and volunteer. Important to note that we are not a drop-in day shelter for homelessness. We do serve folks who are houseless, but they'll come in for lunch. They may need some help in working on a resume, but we don't have couches to crash on. There's no beds. We don't encourage people or allow people to hang out all day. And so our focus is primarily on working poor families and young people. I think it's also important to note just briefly that this building has a lot of community support, and part of the process for us that's important is to set aside funds now for building maintenance to make sure that we can maintain the facility out into the community, out into the future for the community. So that's an intentional part of our process. To date, we've raised over $6.3 million for this project, and we're proud to be taking steps forward in that way. That's been a long haul reach for us over a process of the last 1.5 years. Sometimes people wonder, why should the Canby Center be doing this work? Well, we've been doing it for 14 years in the community. We've been on this site for almost 10. There are 94 individuals, community members, local businesses who have given checks to raise that $6.3 million. These are folks who want to see this project happen. These are folks who care about their neighbors in the community and want to be sure that we can serve those people in a way that's dignified for the future. We also partner with about 45 different agencies around the Canby area. These are food donors and churches. These are the Canby School District and service clubs like Rotary and Kiwanis. Those organizations financially support the Canby Center and also stand with us in volunteerism. And then the last piece to note here, you can't quite see it on the right side, but about 10 other communities have come to the Canby Center in recent years to study our model because they're really interested in this model that strengthens human dignity and encourages personal responsibility at the same time. Most social services don't have that personal responsibility component, and they take lightly the need to really be approaching things in a dignified manner. So I'm going to invite up the other members of our team now. Thanks for letting me share.
Might want to get to the slides here. So.
As you said, no, I'll go ahead and, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay. As we're getting going, I'll introduce everybody, but my name is Kevin Godwin. My partner, Scott Sutton. We're with SG Architecture in Portland, and we're here on behalf of the Canby Center, of course. And we also have our project team with us tonight online. We have Chris Knight with AKS. He's our civil engineer. Tim Bauer, landscape architect from AKS, and also our traffic engineer, Frank Charbonneau. And they're here tonight in case there's some questions that you may have that we might not be able to answer for you. First of all, I'd just like to, I'm going to just take a few minutes tonight just to talk about, which we think is probably the most important part of this application, is the variances that we have in front of you tonight. Ray did an excellent job of just describing what is the Canby Center and what do they do for the community and such. And, when we started this process almost about 2 years ago with the city planning, we came to them and said, okay, we have this unusual site and we want to make, we want to develop it to the maximum. And the TCC had a very long program. We had to put a lot into this building on a very small site, and we got there, but it wasn't because of our doing. We got some great insight from the planning department up front. We came to them with some preliminary designs and said, okay, what are the minefields out there that we have to be aware of? We took the development code in front of us, and we went through that and worked with them hand in hand, going through these. And this is what we came out of those many meetings we had, plus the pre-app of the variances. The variances are very important for this project to be approved, only because the fact that when we started the design of this project, number one element in this was public space safety for this site. Right now, there's no sidewalks from the public street to this building, nor are there any sidewalks from the parking lot to the building to any of the entrances. So that's not very good at all to have that, with considering about all the traffic that comes through this parking lot on a given day. So that was our key factor of just bringing public safety into it, plus the fact that you have a school behind here that use this building on a daily basis when school's in session. So variance number one, as it was talked about earlier, was about the landscaping. There is kind of a trade-off there. When you look at dimensionally on the existing building across the driveway, there's only enough room dimensionally right now to make a drive lane work along with the parking standards, and then there's a 5-foot buffer left. We felt it was more valuable to eliminate that 5-foot landscape buffer and provide some other amenity there, the vertical landscaping as we suggested earlier on, and give that public access to the building that would be in front of the entire building all the way through the front to the south, as well as to the public street. So that was the trade-off there, but we did want to enhance something on that setback. There was also discussions with the Allegro dance and let them know what we were planning on doing there. And they seemed to be okay with that. Plus the fact that there's already about a 15 to 20-foot buffer already there on that property line. So when you look at it from the street or even from the driveway side, the additional 5 feet didn't really change it that much from what it looks like today. There's a lot of mature plants in there that are in that buffer zone already. It looks very nice, it's mature. And so we just wanted to keep that same look. So the impact was very minimal there. As our, moving on to variance number 2, the setback in the back of the building, the 10-foot setback that's required right now versus the 5 that we are requesting. We felt that also, we have a private drive behind us that's only being used by the school district and maybe a few teachers that come through there and park in the shared parking off of 4th. We also want to just, by the trade-off there, once again, for that particular setback is if we had to give 10 feet there, that would definitely impact the interior of that building for all the facilities. Right now, we are maximizing everything in that warehouse, the freezers, the coolers, to get as much storage as possible that we can provide in there. We're also providing some screening along the building off of that private drive, as you can see, to help break down some of the the hardscape that's in there and some additional windows. That building also, the existing building is a non-reinforced CMU building that was built, I'm guessing, in the 60s right now. So, so we want to enhance it a little bit back there just because of that 5 foot. And plus the fact that the other thing, getting back to the front of the building, if we were to have to, the trade-off for that would be that we would have to give up either the interior of that building for all the storage facilities that we have in there, or we'd have to give up a loading zone that's directly right in front of that building right there. That's crucial because what we're trying to do is get all the traffic off the main drive aisles. So right now, having that 5 foot setback allows us to have trucks come in there, park, and not interfere with any of the drive lane for the other cars coming in and out. So we'd have to make a decision if we, to basically leave that where it's at or take it out of the building. And then, and it's much safer for just pedestrians, and also that sidewalk would continue all the way around the building and up to the Canby High School across the 4th Avenue. That's crucial for us for the public safety of this building, considering how many people come to the building in a day, especially the students. And lastly, the last variance is the glazing on the back of the building for the primary and secondary. As it was said before, we're going to be providing some additional landscaping and windows on the existing building, as well as the new expansion off of 4th Avenue, which is technically a private drive. In a sense, the only ones that use it is the school district. So we are trying to enhance that drive as much as we can with some windows in the new addition where the stairwell is at, as you can see, as well as providing some landscaping buffers up on the building that can grow up on the building. Once again, the impact is minimal because you really don't see that building wall from the street. And we don't know what's long-term, what's going to happen with the city, or excuse me, with the Canby School District. We had heard at one time that they might take up that area in front and build another expansion, which in that case, you wouldn't even see the building. But with that, once again, we want to provide some enhancements to the building, even though we don't meet the requirements there, and that was to bring in additional storefront on the upper level. As you can see, we provided quite a bit of glazing in the offices and the conference room, as well in the parking lot side of that building on the upper floor, as well as a outside seating area on the upper floor. In addition to that seating area, we provided a secured loading area for the vans that would sit underneath there at night. We are once again trying to get all the vehicles off of the parking lot at night for the fact that there might be some vandalism going on. So that worked really well to just hide the trucks underneath that area. And so overall, those were our main concerns or our main issues on the variances that, going into this. But, we're very happy with the report that we received from the city. We worked real hard for, a long time with the planners to kind of make sure that we were heading down the right road with this project, because we knew there was going to be a lot of architecture going into the building, as well as just the programming of the building to meet the demands that the Canby Center needed for the community. Otherwise, we think it's going to be a very attractive and a nice, building for the community. Scott, do you have anything else that you might want to add?
No, I think you've covered it pretty well. I think we're just, I think at this point we'd be open for questions from staff, public, whoever would like to participate.
Okay, is that the conclusion of your presentation?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that, yes?
We have to stay here.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that, we'll move on to the next section. Will be, is now the opportunity for proponents of this application may come forward to speak on it for not more than 3 minutes each, unless you are a representative of a group pooling their time. Is there anyone who wishes to speak as a proponent of this project? Going once, going twice. we'll move on. We will now move on to hear opponents of this application for not more than 3 minutes each, unless you are a representative of a group pooling their time. Are there any opponents to this application? Okay, seeing none, the applicant would now have 10 minutes for rebuttal, but because there has been no proponents or opponents speaking, there's nothing really to rebut. So with that, we will now move into questions from the hearing body. I'm going to deviate from my normal process here. I think we need, it sounds like Commissioner Jarosz, because I had brought up the question regarding the in and out of both entrances on 4th and 2nd. Commissioner Jarosz, it sounded like you had questions regarding that same thing as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Any other commissioner have a similar question or the same question?
Turning in and out, which way the road goes.
Okay, so I think
Yes.
let's tackle that one first. So I guess, Don, for me, I am not comfortable with moving forward with this to say that they could, that with the conflicting language in this, and it seems like that is similar to other members of the planning commission. So, I mean, I'd like to hear from the applicants, was it your intention for the driveway going on to 4th to be a one-way so they could just exit, or was it meant for it to be an in and out? Could you clarify that, please?
Yeah, 4th is a one-way private drive, primarily for buses and staff. So we're not anticipating any entry through the 4th Avenue driveway. It's really intended strictly as a left turn only out. Exit only, left turn only.
So would there be opposition to making that, like solidifying that as a condition in this application?
That would be fine. It's intended to be marked that way with signage and arrows on the pavement, that sort of thing. So yeah,
Okay.
we're fine with that condition.
Okay, Don, have I set anything on fire by saying that? Is that okay?
No, we are fine with that, Commissioner.
Awesome. Commissioner Jarosz, Commissioner Ewert, does that take care of that question of yours?
Mostly, but I had a follow-up to that. So that, I wish we had an aerial visual. So will the distribution route on distribution day, will that not change? It's not intended to go around the building, it'll still just go up 2nd?
I can speak to that.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So the distribution route for the Canby Center is all interior to the building now.
Oh,
We used a set of time during the pandemic when
Okay.
we couldn't be able to have people in the facility because of COVID restrictions. We were doing loading of people in their cars, but that won't be the case at the Canby Center unless there were some pandemic requirement to not have people in the building.
Okay.
But folks will come in, they'll park, and they'll have a scheduled time slot with which to shop in their building. And they might shop for 15, 20 minutes, and then the next folks will come in. So it'll be much more distributed for us, and they'll come inside to shop.
okay,
Good question.
thank you. And the other one, there will be 2 driveways facing 2nd, correct? So the current one and then the private road one, 2 driveways.
That's existing, correct.
Yeah,
And
so-
also, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And to add a little bit more to that driveway off of 4th too, we had discussions with the fire department as well. There's one more of the constraints of the property for that access is it's kind of sloped right now, so it's about a 6% driveway right there coming in. So we had discussions with the fire department and to get the turning radius to work for the fire trucks to come out of there, we needed at least 20 feet. They would like to see 24. We have designed it in other documents at 24, so we actually have more room there. So 24 is technically a 2-way drive, but it's really going to still be used as a 1-way. It was just, we need the 24 for the cars to maneuver back and forth and for the trash hauler to come in and access the trash enclosure and so forth.
But everybody's coming in off 2nd.
But everybody,
traveling
yeah.
across the site, and then not cars, clients will be able to exit back out onto 2nd.
Right.
It's just for larger trucks, delivery trucks, trash trucks, fire trucks, that they'll come in off of 2nd, they'll leave off through Fourth.
Oh, now I'm really confused, because the arrow there of Fourth shows going in from Second.
Left
Pardon?
turnout, it's a left turnout on Fourth. Left turn only.
Commissioner Jarosh, I just maybe could clarify that I think the intent here is that's a left turn only motion there. And I think what they're speaking to is in the graphic that there is a two-way arrow that's shown.
Oh, that was a.
Yeah, and that's, again, that's a small thing. And I think the intent here and the condition will be that it will be routed as a one-way.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
it's coming, I'm looking at Fourth Avenue on the top there, I'm gonna get my laser pointer out. And it's coming, you're turning off a Second onto Fourth, one way in.
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay.
It's also only buses.
That's-
and
we have no-
school staff, it's
Yeah.
not.
So when we said, and I think it was in the staff report, it said there was a left turn only exit, where's that?
Right there off of Fourth, there you go, there's a pointer, right there. You know, our driveway where it says 24 there, Fourth Avenue, that's a left turn only out of our drive. We have no access to Fourth Avenue, we don't control
Okay.
that at all.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. The 24
Okay.
feet is a requirement to have a
Right.
two-way, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it for you, Commissioner Jarosh?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Ewert, did you have anything more on this topic?
Yes, I do. Going out from the parking lot, I had the same question about the arrows. That's very confusing. It's showing a two-way parking lot traffic scheme here. But, so we're talking a one-way out. I think we should have signage on that says exit only, left turn only. I think that it should also be noted on the second that it is entrance only. We've got to get the traffic going and keep the traffic going. There's a congested area right across there from the fueling station and everything. We need to keep the traffic going the right way. Now, my other question that I've got in regard to the same thing is, how do you get food deliveries? We're talking semi-trucks?
Most of our food deliveries are smaller trucks and Sprinter van style. Our
Okay.
Sprinter van is the thing that picks up most of our food. It can handle a couple pallets. So think of a tall van.
Okay.
And that's fairly easy to get into that loading zone, unload with a forklift, move that food inside.
Okay, so I just want to make it clear, in my opinion, and I have some experience in this.
Yes.
You're planning this out 20 years.
Yes.
Okay? I don't have a problem with utilizing this site for this. It's an infill, it's a good thing, good play, I don't have a problem with that. But as you grow, if you start having larger trucks come in here, you're gonna be facing a real problem here because you have no loading docks.
No loading dock formally, but the loading drop-off pickup zone is really important for that.
Yeah,
So we
so-
should be able to accommodate a larger truck if that was necessary. They're pretty rare for us. I understand they may increase in measure as we go forward, but that's why that drop-off zone is really important for us.
I guess you've got 24 feet there. You've got cars coming in and out of there. A semi-truck parked in there and unloading is really gonna mess up your situation. Okay? This is gonna be really, really tight for that. Now, I'm not saying that we need to say no semi-trucks in here, but moving forward, that could very well be a possibility because you're going onto a one-way, you're coming in one way through here. We're already limiting sidewalks and everything else. You start adding larger trucks to this mix for this type of facility, and I can see that happening. It's gonna create a problem. So
And I
I
hear
think you
you.
folks just need to keep that in mind, that if that
Absolutely.
problem
Absolutely.
starts to create, there could be,
Yeah.
you might have to find an off-site situation to unload and bring your stuff into.
Very
Okay.
possible. And I think too, for a lot of these types of situations, scheduling for us is really the win, where we can do that and do that effectively. Fourth Avenue, that busing lane is busy roughly 2 times a day for about 45 minutes. And so most of our scheduling can be done and is done around those times.
Okay, I just want to throw that out there, we're tight.
Yep, absolutely.
So the other thing, the question I've got here is now you've got Canby High School has signed off on this, from that. You've got, has the dance studio had any input into this at all? Have
Yes,
they
I
had
met with-
communications? I don't see any letters, I don't see anything.
I met with
from them.
Joni and Jeff on a couple of occasions over the last few years, talking with them, and shared most recently with them our most recent drawings and plans. And when we met with them this last time, there was, support for the project, excitement about it. I think their primary concern expressed over the last few years was just making sure that we meet the code for parking. They had to work hard to meet their code for parking,
Yes,
so they wanted
they
to
did.
be sure that we met ours, and we do. And so I think the thing that is really the major strength of this process from where we are today is right now the Canby Center has to bring in 50 families at a time for a food pantry because we set up the food, we distribute the food. In this model, they'll be scheduled throughout the week in time slots that might bring no more than 8 or 10 families at a time. So our traffic flow should be much improved, much more distributed, rather than, peak points that get intense.
Sure.
Yeah.
So looking up here in your existing building, the little circle indications up there, are those tables? There were people, so you're gonna be.
On the right side,
On the
yes,
right
they
side.
are. We serve lunch 4 days a week.
Okay, so I guess my question, Matt, is you're on the parking and the traffic study.
Yes.
If you've got, I'm looking at, what, a dozen tables in there, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, maybe more. And you've got 8 people at a table.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah,
talking
it's
80.
a fair question.
80-some people,
I can
they're gonna
address it
drive
really-
there.
really easily. What I would say is that design and the way it's shown there on the screen is to indicate maximum capacity. Most of the time through our work week, we don't operate at a maximum capacity. We have maybe 20 people in for lunch at a time. And that might, another pool of 20 might come in the second hour or so. What that indicates is if we were to do a special event in an evening, that might be a time when we would have more parking need, for example, or more people in the facility. In those situations in the past where we've had more people in, we partner with Canby High School and we ask to share their parking lot, and they're great about that.
Well, as long as you're not doing it on the same night as a football game,
Exactly.
basketball game,
Exactly.
track
Yeah.
meet, or theater, I guess you're gonna be. And the reason I asked this question is I was doing the math, and the parking lots, and here's the other situation that this is gonna be for you guys and for them. We just had Canby High School in here, and they gave up how many parking spots to put in their classrooms? That, I didn't necessarily agree with that, but we went ahead and approved it because they said there's gonna be 0 growth for the next 10 years. Now we're giving up more parking. So I guess my question is, and I don't have this here in front of me, and this isn't your fault, but it is, I just want to make sure that we are, in the staff report, we've got the general office spaces, general offices at 5 spaces, 6, all others at 6.3. Anyway, it totals down to 27.92 required parking spaces, or at least that's what they're, I'm not exactly sure if that's required or if that's, my point is this. It says, therefore, with the 25 parking spaces, the 2 TCC van parking spaces, and the 6 shared use parking spaces, and the 1 pickup drop-off parking space, the number of the required parking spaces is met. Now, I guess my question is it taking the 6 spaces that Canby High School is giving up or sharing to meet this, or is that over? I guess I just have a problem. I kind of feel like Canby High School is sharing parking spots that they don't have. I mean, they have them physically, but they've already given up a number of them to get their new facility built.
I understand what you're
So-
saying, yeah. So the answer is no, and that the 25 plus the TCC and the loading meets the standard.
As
Okay.
well as the shared parking that we are replacing that was already there in the beginning for the Canby High School. So there was, yeah, so we're adding that in as well.
Okay, when I read through this, I kind of got the impression that Canby House could say, sure, we'll share our parking. Well, they already gave up 20-some parking
Yeah.
spots to get their new thing done, and then the other problem I had too is where that driveway comes out, that new driveway comes out, it looks to me like there's probably 1, 2, 3, or 4 parking spaces going away there. So as far as Canby High School is concerned, they're already shy parking spaces, and now we're losing 4 more.
You're getting 2 of those back down at the east end where it's currently just striped space.
Okay?
So
Yeah.
You're still down 2 by
Yeah.
your calculation, but it's not quite as bad as.
It's a net loss of 2 for the
Okay,
Canby.
so I guess as far as what my point is,
To add something a little bit more on that, and I was at the hearing that you were calling for Canby High School. That was approved with a reduction in parking. The applicants came back later and said, we actually did not count everything. And they admitted that. So I think it might be good for the high school to come back with a true count for that. So that, this is something they were kind of embarrassed about. The hearing had already been occurred and approved under that auspice. No need to go back through that process, but I would say that, they were actually not deficient, even though they thought they were. And that was unfortunate that came across that way.
so are they not efficient in the negative or in the positive?
They're positive, actually. They thought they were negative, but,
So they actually, okay.
yeah,
I just-
there was an error on their part. It was Angelo Planning Group. And so anyway, they came back and it was this thing that was already resolved. I would say anything that comes back from Canby High School in the future, we'd like, the first starting point is what is your parking? But they didn't count a whole lot. And they, somehow this got slipped by. And so.
Okay.
One other thought there, Dan, just briefly, and that would be that we're a strong partner with Canby School Districts. We serve the students and youth and families in Canby School District. And we're actually adding parking spaces to that region. And they often are used when there's a football game and other big events like that. When Allegro has a big event and there's cars parked all over the place, they're using our lot as well. And so it's a pretty symbiotic relationship. And I think
Yeah, I get that.
it's a net add.
From a planning standpoint,
Totally understand that.
we're
I understand that.
packing a lot into an area,
Yes, sir.
and we had the discussion. I'm a great proponent of Canby High School. I like your project, but from a planning standpoint, we just kind of have to be a little bit careful as to what is going on with all of the parking, because it's pretty tight. Now, the other question I have is we talked about the people coming in for eating. You've got classrooms upstairs.
Yes, sir.
When you've got classrooms, how many people are we talking in the classrooms that are gonna be
Upstairs classroom can seat 40 or so folks.
in each classroom?
In a combined classroom, it's dividable. So
Okay.
we might have one larger classroom, max would be 40.
Okay, and so you have, how many classrooms?
There's one,
Just one, and it can be a large one, and it can seat 40.
yeah.
Okay, so I just get the feeling that this whole parking issue is running a little tight.
Part of what's good to know about our community center's work is we serve low-income people. So a lot of our folks are walk-up or they're bike-up. And
Okay.
so there's a fair bit of that access to our facility.
Right.
Part of that, and that's about the proximity. We're next to Canby High School, which is great, but we're also on the side of the tracks where most of the low-income folks are. We're within walking distance of a lot of the lower-income apartments in town. And so those folks access our services, oftentimes walk up.
Have you talked to the dance studio about sharing parking with them at all?
We did have conversations early on about some of that, and I think they just would prefer to be autonomous. I think, they, I think, want that separation, that idea of, okay, there's a Canby Center's over there, that's great, we're doing our thing here.
Okay.
But I believe that the vertical screen is probably the best way to deal with that. It's actually better than what we do now, which is just a chain link fence that's up there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than
Just a
my
second.
condition as far as adding the signage to the parking lot, I think I'm good.
Okay.
Could I ask a clarifying question, Dan, on that topic?
So you can ask me the clarifying
Oh, sorry.
question, and then we'll sort it out from there. We're getting off a little off the rails here, so I want to
No
bring this
problem.
back in.
Thank you, Jason. Clarifying question to ask regarding the signage for exit and entrance.
Okay, as far as, are we, and I guess that's a question for me too, Commissioner Ewer, are you wanting to put in a specific condition of approval that they need to put the one-way signs on both driveways? Is that what you are requesting?
Yes, coming off a second, I would like to have an entrance in, going on to Fourth, exit out, left turn signs.
Okay,
At least do it right.
That-
I think that will cause a problem, because it sounds like to me, in listening to listen to their explanation, the reason the Second Avenue is in and out is for trucks, deliveries and such, and the fire department. I worry if we require them to have a sign there that says no, one way only, that is going to cause some confusion and trouble with that aspect of this design.
I think I could address that if it's okay, Jason.
Yes, please do.
Fairly simply, I love the idea of an exit-only sign back to Fourth Avenue. The entrance only on the front just might be confusing. It is the only way into the Canby Center, because that would be exit-only in the back. But there are times during bus pickups and drop-offs at the high school where it would be beneficial for someone who's parked near Second Avenue to back out and head out onto Second Avenue, rather than to go through where there's congestion in the back where they're picking up students.
All right, I'll concede that.
Thank you,
I
Dan.
concede
I
that.
appreciate that.
I'm just, this is tight,
It is.
but,
It is.
and as far as the fire trucks are concerned, if they're there, they're gonna go any way they wanna go, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like Commissioner Ewert, you are requesting a condition of approval that the exit onto Fourth Avenue be signed one way only, left turn only. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Do we have note of that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Commissioner Ewert, we'll just go ahead and stay with you. Do you have any other questions?
I'm good right now.
Okay. Commissioner Hutchinson?
The only thing that bothers me about all this is I think that we're starting to run into compounding problems with private streets. I think that some of the issues that we're running into go back to the 4th Street expansion at the high school and pinching some things there. I know the people who run Allegro Dance Studio well, and if they had any issues with this project, we would certainly know about it, trust me. And their primary concern is the safety of the students coming and going. And that has always been their issue. That's their issue when they're in at the high school. It's their issue when they were in their former site. The high school has huge amounts of traffic, and sometimes they're coordinated and sometimes they're not. And that's, in fact, I'm looking at the site plan here, and I can actually see where the Canby High School expansion is going to be. And that's a major pickup and drop-off place for band students, football players, and other people that kind of enter in at that end of the stadium. This is going to be a very busy part of town. And it's going to be a lot of students walking around. And I greatly appreciate the expansion of the sidewalk. I wish there was room for more. But we can't turn the clock back and put a fatter road on 4th Street or anything like that at this point. So I think everything is going to be fantastic, but it is going to be a very busy part of town.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Hutchinson?
No, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Jarosh?
I had a couple things, again, just from a planning perspective. I've spent a lot of time in the Canby Center. I so appreciate everything that's done there, and the staff, and everybody's just wonderful. So I have heartburn about the setback variance on the west side. And the reason for that is just a generic question about when do we and when do we not. I mean, I've lived in some cities that are very strict about this. They don't grandfather anything. And so, yeah, then there's a little indent in the building or an indent as it goes up, and maybe that looks a little odd, but setbacks are setbacks. And so to me, there has to be a huge hurdle about why we would approve that as a city, because it kind of starts setting a precedence. And I'm not sure what that hurdle rate is, but when I look at this, I think, yeah, okay, you don't want it, but maybe your coolers could be a little smaller, or it doesn't, to me, in my mind, address a safety issue by having that extra 5 feet. It's about wanting to maximize the capacity. And doesn't everyone want to do that with their home or their building, right? And plenty of cities say no anyway. So can you help me get over that heartburn a little?
Well, for one issue, or one item would be if we provided the 10-foot setback, it would push the expansion 5 feet into the area that we're proposing for walkway, drop-off, drive aisle, et cetera. So yeah, that would reduce the expansion size of the building is needed for the ability to serve the clients over time.
I don't understand that, sorry. So why can't you reduce the interior?
I could address it. If you look at the main space in the middle of the building where will be the entrance in the lobby, in that space, there's a minimum required amount of square footage that's needed to greet people, get them into the right services. In that space, we have showers for the first time. And most importantly, on the top of that picture, you'll see that there's a hallway that connects the existing building and the new facility. It's critical for us to be able to move food from the dry good food storage over to the kitchen, which is on the right side of the building. During the pandemic, I would just say there were things that we had to be able to do to serve folks who were going to go without food unless we stepped up. And I feel like now is the time to get ready for that wave that's coming. And so for us, losing those sections or encroaching more on the parking lot creates other pain points and pinch points that are really challenging.
Right. I wouldn't consider encroaching on the parking lot. I would just say, like anybody that's told by a city, reconfigure your plan on the inside.
And to add to that also is, we tried to find some information on the existing building, why it was at 5 feet already. And we were just trying to meet and match what was there.
Oh, isn't everyone when they have a grandfathered setback? You're not alone.
Right, aesthetically. So, we were trying to figure out where that 5 foot, where that 10 foot came from. It could have been a zoning change that was on the overlay
Right,
zone.
and that's
It probably was, but can I address, you were saying, well, what keeps this from being a precedent for everybody else? The main thing that keeps it from being a precedent for everybody else is you have a one-way restricted private drive that this is happening on.
It's a bus lane.
I would bet money that doesn't occur anywhere else in the city.
So we would use that as a reason for another developer that would say, well, aesthetically, it looks funny,
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Oh, I heard you say aesthetically.
No, he said.
Oh, you, sorry.
So no, I didn't.
Okay,
But
sorry.
one of the criteria for a variance is that it's a unique situation, right? Or words to that effect. This is probably the only place in the city that this could or will happen. So that makes it unique. And so I don't think you have to worry about other people. Even if they came wanting to do this, you would not have to use this as precedent, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Buses drive 5 feet from our building right now.
I understand
They're
that.
going to continue to drive 5 feet from our building right now, out into the future. The only difference is, will the building be longer in this case?
Yeah, I mean, we've grappled with this
could
with others.
Could I interject a little bit, Commissioner Jarosh? I think just to support, I mean, this is always a tough situation where you're going through a variance process. So as planning staff looking at this, what is the uniqueness of this? I would say several things. One is the site constraints on the site. You have an existing building and you basically have a public need that I think has been well demonstrated within the community. That is quite unique. I think it'd be difficult to duplicate that. I do agree that it would be very difficult to say there'd be another Canby Center, not impossible, but they're already at that location. So there's definitely a uniqueness here in terms of site constraints. Also, on the design review side of things, we really strongly believe they're meeting the intent of the design standards within the code itself. This building is actually quite attractive. The team has done a really good job, in staff's opinion, on designing this to make it be an attractive thing in addition to the city. I also believe that there is no detrimental impacts to adjacent properties, which I think is critical based on the design team's work and how they've put this together. So I don't think that this is a situation that somebody else can duplicate that same finding. You have an existing situation where arguably they're paralleling the design of the footprint of the building and arguably actually putting it on a diet to some extent. To as far as I could tell here, that they're not actually, you know, this building is mirroring what's already there and just being extended. So I think all those things, in staff's opinion, I believe this is a stronger case than many for a variance situation. So those would be staff's findings on that, and it's reflected in the staff report. But I believe that the applicant has shown well that they've put together an application for a future horizon that based on a public need, and we support that as staff.
Okay. Then one other, just a notation, especially since we have a housing planning meeting tomorrow. We don't know where our low-income housing will be in 10 years probably, but it's not going to be where it is today as much, right? They're going to have to build out somewhere else. So that's something to think about in the long-term plan, which maybe you have. It's probably going to be on the other side of town. So it kind of made me have a mental note about, will there be an annex? Maybe. And so if this is a 20-year plan, I guess we don't know how to address the 20-year low-income housing plan. It hasn't been decided yet. But it's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that it'll be anywhere near the Canby Center. Right?
I would say that arguably the high school is there to stay. Yep. And
Yeah.
I think there's a connectional point, a very strong connectional point, which I didn't bring up as another unique aspect of this, which I think there's an integration of services. I think, you know, the bus facility, I think also addresses largely the concern, you know, of this overwhelming situation where you might have, you know, literally a traffic problem anywhere else, whereas I think there's synergies with the school district and this operation together. And so,
Yeah, I mean, just my mental note was saying, well, if there's going to be a big housing development, low income, and those people walk, which we know a lot of them do, then there will have to be an annex or something. And so are we overbuilding this for that site?
it's
I
a
don't, that just. it
it's a
just
good
popped in my
question,
head.
and I think part of our objective perhaps, and we'll discuss that tomorrow evening, is to look at, like, you know, how does more affordable housing, not necessarily affordable, but more
Right,
affordable,
yes.
maybe aspirationally, get integrated throughout the city that provides those things that are within proximity to, you know, in the high school situation. I mean, kids, obviously, they're taking advantage of that, but to your point, it's a good one. There are other needs in the community. I do feel like the Canby Center's made a really good faith effort, though, towards fulfilling those.
Okay. And then my last one is the screening, the landscape screening. So we have a unique commission here because we have two people with horticulture backgrounds. Chair Padden has a significant horticulture background. We haven't talked about this, but I have never seen a screening like that looked even halfway good. If you guys have any picture of an existing one rather than a mock-up. Again, I haven't seen one in Canby. Have we? I don't know if we have one anywhere, a real one that we can look at. That I've seen them elsewhere, and they're not I know if this is going to be, again, a precedent setting, and, because we don't have guidelines about what constitutes a fence, and we're going through that right now. But again, this one gives me a little heartburn just because I've never seen one look good, and I don't see one in Canby that I know of.
And I would, again, put more content in this in terms of the uniqueness of the site and the need for that operationally with the sidewalk, circulation, and access, that really those are constraints on this site. I would say arguably we would not normally support that, but I also believe that that could be done attractively. I think this team here obviously has a group of professional designers that I think they had obviously picked plants that would look good. Again, you're right, that's not a common situation, but I think it can be done. I would think more
Have you
outside
ever
the
seen one?
box. Well, maybe Bouchard Gardens, perhaps. I mean, that might be the closest example, but like, that would be where you would see something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it for me.
Can you hear me in the chamber? Hello? Hello?
Oh, no,
We can hear you.
barely.
Can you hear me in
Yeah,
the
you're
chamber?
good now, yeah.
Now again.
Good.
Okay, so I would say that probably the most successful I've seen this is over at the Fred Meyer Field Station. The plants that they put on their screen fence over there actually have filled in quite nice and look quite well. So I think that would be, I think that's what I would use as an example of how that could look in the city and actually turned out quite well. Anything else for Commissioner DeRoche?
No, thank you.
Okay. For me, I have a few things. While we're on the screen, I don't know if I really would want to make this a condition of this, but I would recommend a solid screen rather than a broken screen for that, so that it doesn't allow for people to cut through the planting bed to the two different properties and provides a certain amount of security. And I highly recommend stick to the 6 feet pretty stringently, because that is something that's in the works here as far as fences and plant used, vegetation being used as a screen. And so preemptively, I recommend it stick to that 6 foot height. One of the other things that I have here is, let me find that piece of paper. In finding 7, mentions that the applicant should reconstruct the sidewalk along the north frontage. And then it says in finding 12, on page 10, it mentions the sidewalk on Southwest 2nd being updated as a condition. Is that sidewalk actually being reconstructed and updated, or is that up to the will of the applicant?
Chair Patton, it is a condition of approval that the substandard sidewalk on Southwest 2nd shall be upgraded to a 6 foot wide sidewalk. And that's condition number 5 on the COAs.
Okay, and so just so to prevent any heartburn, any substandard sidewalk on this property is going to be upgraded, is that correct?
Correct, that is the only, currently, that's the only sidewalk that's abutting in the site and the only substandard public sidewalk.
Okay, excellent. The last thing, so I did, when it came to the 10-foot changing the setback, I do see where Commissioner DeRoche is coming from. I appreciate where she is coming from, and I would say that if it was anything other than this particular situation, I would probably push back as well, as far as making that building step in the 10 feet, or step in the extra 5 feet, and you would just have to lose that space if you wanted to keep the same amount of parking or whatever. But considering what this building is going to be, I have no problem, I have no heartburn with that condition. The last thing I would like to do is talk about your variance for the glazing where the vans are parked. If you could bring up that view. Yeah, Yes, right here where it says south elevation.
This one right here?
In your fancier picture, I will say that for me, one of the reasons that there's the requirement for the glazing is to break that those walls up, so that it looks more attractive and kind of softens the edge. My feeling with this is because this is facing towards school, kids are going to be looking out the windows at this. You know, it will be viewed more than any sort of side or back of other buildings. My question is, I would really like to see some of that same vegetative panels put on the side of this open space to help soften this up. Would that cause you a tremendous amount of heartburn to add that vegetation into that plan?
This side.
Right.
There. Yeah, no problem.
We're good. That's fine.
Okay. Don, will it set everything on fire if we make that a condition of approval or not?
It's fine for us.
And we're accepting what the applicant is accepting on that. So yes, they seem to be okay with that.
Okay.
There's also a CMU wall there right now too, a 6-foot-high CMU wall, or 8-foot-high CMU
Yeah, he
wall.
wants it to look nicer though.
But you just want some landscaping up against it, growing up against that wall, is that correct? Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
because my understanding of it is that this is still getting a bit of a variance here as far as what that vegetation and stuff really would be, as far as trees and such there. Okay. And by adding those screens, it will add an element of vertical, right? No. Yes, vertical vegetation where otherwise a tree might be planted in that area.
Yeah.
So
Not a
that's what I'm aiming for.
Not a problem.
Chair Patton, can I ask a clarifying question for your condition of approval that you would like?
Yes.
So are we talking, so there's the wall of the back facade, and then there's the parking area, and there's that, 6-foot wall between the parking and the edge of the property line? Are you asking for that vegetation to be on the outer wall or on the wall of the building itself?
On the outer wall. If it was on the wall of the building, it would be planted in the dark. That would make absolutely no sense.
True.
I'm talking about where there's this brick,
Yeah.
there's the open spaces, and then there's like the rail, the base and sort of the railing of the balcony. It would be on that area there, on the outer side of it.
Down at the bottom.
Right in here on this screen wall. Yep,
Correct.
right there, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's-
Thank you.
Does that clarify it?
Yeah.
Okay. But otherwise, looking through my notes, those were the main sticking points for me. So are there any additional questions of members of the Planning Commission or the hearing body before we proceed?
Chair Patton, I just have one request, if I may.
Okay, Commissioner Ewert?
I think it's going to be, at least I would like to see some verbiage from the planning staff in this, I don't know where you want to put it, condition of approval or whatever, as to why, I have the same heartburn that Commissioner DeRoche has as far as the variances are concerned and the setbacks. I like the infill with this, but I have to say, if it wasn't this particular project, this would not fly, in my opinion. But I would like to see some verbiage in the staff report, in the file, that says why we are doing this. We've got one other property, I think, that's going to be coming up in that same block to be developed, and I do not want to set a precedence with this. I want it stated very clearly as to why we're doing this, as far as the need of the community, the service that they provide for the community, and so on and so forth. I think that needs to be stated, and we need to be real clear about that, so we don't have somebody else marching in here and saying, "Well, you did it for them, you're going to do it for us."
So to your point, Chair Ewert, I think for our final findings, what I would recommend is taking the record tonight, preparing kind of intro piece to that about a summation onto the reasons why we discussed that and why that uniqueness applies to this project, if that is acceptable to the
I
commission.
would appreciate that.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay, Mr. Knight, from the applicant, you had something you wish to add?
Yes, excuse me, in regard to the screening on the southern portion of the building, I'd like us to pull up a site plan there and talk just about a possible difficulty in that with the sidewalk being required on that southern portion, the CMU wall is located at the point where there is the utility restriction or difficulty there that makes this, and you can see it here, the sidewalk has been shortened up to 4 feet wide because of existing utility poles and things of that nature. And so up against this CMU block wall, there's not room for very much landscaping to be placed there. There may be some ways for us to get creative here and provide something there, but I wanted to make sure that we were aware of that as we're writing in that condition.
Okay, I do see what you're talking about there. So there's no way to adjust that sidewalk out to provide a planting bed for things there?
I think the difficulty is right around in this area here is where that pole's located in this area, if I remember right, Chris.
Correct. I mean, we've necked down the sidewalk there to 4 feet just to be able to barely fit it in between the edge of the building and that utility. And there may be another view that actually shows that pole, but that is the location that those are currently located.
Let's see here. Another option could be for that area would be, right now, it's open right here in between the CMU wall and the structure of the floor above. We could possibly maybe do something that we could enclose this area with some landscaping, maybe a planter on the top of that wall that could grow up or something. To bring some softscape.
Yeah, for me, it just, compared to the other portions of the building, this section of the building is facing the community as much as any other side of the building. And I just feel that this section does not really meet the intent of what we want for that sort of mix of textures for like a community-facing set portion of a building. So I'm fine with giving a variance to that glazing aspect on this if there is something more to be done to make this more architecturally pleasing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So do I need to amend my condition, or Don?
Chair Padden, I think what we could probably say is that to the extent practical, there would be landscaping provided to provide breakup of the CMU wall, aesthetically break up the CMU wall.
How about a mural?
Yeah, or
It's
something
very
along
thin.
those lines.
Because I worry about vegetation, it always ends up creeping out, you know, and the sidewalk's kind of slim there to start with.
Well, and that's why I mentioned something about some architectural piece or something along those lines to soften that up. Instead of saying vegetation, make it some sort of architectural piece or something along those lines to give them some more latitude in what that would look like.
Yeah, there's a couple other constraints here. Is we're fighting some slope right now in here. So this is sloping all in this area right here. So this is a landscape plan right now. One option we could do is we could heavily plant this whole strip right here with more landscaping.
More shrubs.
More shrubs to kind of give something that, something that has some verticality there for that, to take that building scale down a little bit. Otherwise, we're, as Chris was saying, we're right up against the wall right here with the sidewalk because of the PGE pole and everything.
There's no other place for this.
There's no other place.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then I will retract that condition.
just a second, Jason, before you do that. I'm
Okay.
looking at a print right here in the drawings, and I'm pretty sure I'm seeing that pole that we're talking about. It's sitting right here.
No, it's actually, you can see it on the drawing, it's kind of right in the middle of that maple tree. It's
right there. See my, yeah, right there, right on the.
Yeah, it's right there
Yep.
on the black
That's
line.
Yep, that's the pole right there.
Okay.
And that's based off the survey.
So here's what I will say then, is I will retract my condition, but I really strongly urge you to do something to make that look better, because to be honest, it does not look nice at all.
We will work.
And if I was at the school, I would not want to look at that all day long.
It's important that it look good. I agree with you. Thank you, Jason.
Okay? So with that, was there anything else? Okay, with that, I will go ahead, let me just make sure I'm at the right place here. Are there any other? Okay, with that, I will now close the public hearing, and we will move on to any final questions or deliberation from the hearing body regarding the information provided within the public hearing. And we will start with the list I have here, and we will start with Commissioner Hutchinson.
I think I'm good, thank you.
Excellent. Commissioner Ewert?
I think we've covered it enough.
Okay.
It's tight.
Okay. Commissioner Jarosh?
No, one thing I thought about was, has anyone touched base with the Traffic Safety Commission? You know, they're very focused on Southwest 2nd and 3rd as a hotbed. But the sign's out, so hopefully they saw it, and if they had something, they would bring it to you. But yeah, other than that, nothing, thank you.
Okay, and I believe regarding that Traffic Safety Commission piece, I believe the last I heard was that Don is working on reaching out to those folks and looping them back into this process the way they had been before.
Oh.
So if not this project, we will be sure to run future projects through them. Is that correct, Don?
Chair Padden, yes, we're kind of working through the details of that. That has not been completely sorted, but yes, we are working towards that process.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Jarosh?
No, thank you.
Okay. I just want to say that I strongly believe in what the Canby Center does for the community. I've seen what sort of impact them moving has. I watched them move from that particular building or near there to the old Wilco site, and then they moved back to that location. And my suspicion is that it was because they were not serving the people that they needed to serve the most. And so while I echo Commissioner Jarosh's sentiment that during the housing needs analysis and all of the plans and stuff that we are going through is going to uncover where holes in their service may be, my guess is that they will continue to go out of this site and perhaps have other sites spread throughout the community as it grows. So I have no problem with the 20-year plan, and it has no impact on what I think about this particular project or approving it. So with that, I have covered everything that I had. If there's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Chair Padden, I would like to make a motion that we approve DR 22-07 with variances 22-02 as submitted by staff, with the addition of the condition of signage from the parking lot onto 4th. That would be a non-entrance and left turn only, or exit only. I don't know exactly, I'd have to ask staff's opinion on how, are we going to make it a condition as far as the landscaping goes on that wall, or how do you want?
No, I've retracted that condition, but
Okay.
I have sort of a draft motion here to capture all of that stuff.
Okay. Did we have anything else?
The sidewalk on Southwest 4th and that 6-foot condition with the 4 feet where the utility constraints exist.
Okay. So we're going to strike that?
We're going to add on to the
We're gonna
existing
add that.
condition.
Okay,
Yeah, correct.
very good. So with those two additions and the verbiage that we're going to have from.
Final
staff,
findings will be
as far-
summarized for the uniqueness of
as
why
that-
there's a variances are granted.
I would make a motion that we approve it and moving forward.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Ewert, seconded by Commissioner Hutchinson to approve DR 22-07 and VAR-22 or 22-02 Canby Center remodel and expansion with staff recommendations, Planning Commission recommendations, conditions of approval, and all discussed amendments. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we will proceed to a vote, and I'll do a roll call vote. Akabit, Commissioner Hutchinson,
Aye.
Commissioner Ewert,
Aye.
Commissioner Jarosh,
Aye.
and I am an aye as well. So with that, the application is approved unanimously. I want to thank everybody for their time and effort that they've put into this. And we look forward to seeing all of that stuff codified in the final findings at our meeting on October 10th. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, now we will go back to this paperwork here. So we've closed up, we're done with our public hearing, and we'll move on to item number 6 in our agenda, which is items of interest and report from the planning staff, planning director updates, and a rundown of our future planning commission meetings. Take it away, Don.
Chair Patton, thank you. Just a few updates on upcoming items. There, as was discussed before, just as a general point of information, there'll be a Housing Advisory Committee meeting tomorrow evening. There'll also be an Economic Advisory Committee meeting on Thursday of this week. Those are starting to formulate quantify the needs for the community in terms of housing, commercial and industrial employment. Also looking at measures that are strategies that could be used to fulfill those without an urban growth boundary expansion, but with the notion that it's pretty clear that an urban growth boundary expansion will be needed. That's probably not surprising given that the comprehensive plan has been acknowledged, it's from 1984. So it's been a while since the boundary's been looked at. So that there's more coming on that. And speaking of the comprehensive plan, just a quick update on that. We did receive 2 submittals for the comprehensive plan from proposers for comprehensive plan, transportation system plan, and urban growth boundary expansion. Interviews for those are planned on October 19th. I'm hoping that council will be receiving a recommendation for consultant selection on November 16th with a scope of work, and hopefully a second reading on December 7th, which would mean that we would start the comprehensive plan, transportation system plan update process in the beginning of next year. So that's, and the housing and economic advisory information and the studies that are being completed will be a very strong foundation for moving forward, along with a very robust public outreach process that will be very critical to the success of this, including strong visioning, looking at this in the future, looking at 20 years in the future, really trying to strive to gain a public review of this. This is a conversation that probably has not happened in some time in the city, but it is an important one in terms of that discussion. A few other things happening. We will be Wednesday evening, the 28th, there'll be a dog park open house here in this room, which will be a discussion about the dog park and some elements regarding that. So that's something that the public's invited to. It's been advertised. And just on the hearings, if I could, Commissioner Padden, if I could jump into the hearing process, up and coming hearings, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay, before I get to that, actually, there's one more thing I forgot to mention. October 19th, joint work session with Planning Commission and City Council on the housing and economic assessment discussions. There'll be a reporting out by our consultants and staff on where we're at with that, and I think it'll be good foundationally for Planning Commission and Council to understand where are we going, and kind of that relates to the comprehensive plan piece. So segueing Commissioner Padden into the upcoming hearings. So October 10th, I do know that Commissioner Ellison and Commissioner Jarosh will not be present, so hopefully we'll have everyone else here for that on the 10th. That will be final findings for tonight's hearing. We'll have meeting minutes as well, and then Ryan Potter will be giving an update on all the things that we're working on as planning, current planning and long-range planning. He has a number of slides that he was going to go through and discuss that. I will not be present during that meeting. I'll actually be out of town, but we are intending to have that meeting on October 10th for that. And then on October 24th, jumping ahead, the Redwood Street Trail Crossing annexation and rezone will be the next hearing item in October. I don't have November hearings yet. There's still a number of them that are kind of ebbing and flowing. They're lingering, but they're going to be probably in the November, December range. I'm believing we're going to have hearing items pretty consistently through the end of the year on that. I know there's a couple things you're probably wondering about. When fencing is going to come back, that'll be another item probably in November, and Ryan can cover that at the next Planning Commission about what we're still gathering the information that that you all talked about, and then also the tree ordinance, and that will be another piece coming back to you as well. Some of that discussion will continue into the comprehensive plan discussions because there's an environmental element in the comprehensive plan. We'll want to make sure that we're discussing that as well. There will be advisory groups for the comprehensive plan and transportation system plan. I'm just kind of planting seeds, so if there's interest, I would say that we would want some representation from the Planning Commission and Council, and just throwing that out there. So just think about that. I don't know what that full commitment looks like, but that'll be next year. So if there's questions on that or other things, let me know. That's kind of what we have on our plate right now. So just want to open that up for a discussion.
Okay, I have something really quickly, Don. So I will be at the Economic Development meeting on Thursday. My question is when it comes to the housing meeting, is James Heap confirmed that he is attending that meeting, and then will report back to us as a representative for the Planning Commission, even though he is no longer on the Planning Commission? Or are we not going to have representation as a Planning Commission at that meeting?
I'll answer both those questions. The first one is yes, he has confirmed he will be participating. And the second part, I will confirm once I talk to him saying we are anticipating him reporting back to this body. I don't have that confirmation, but I will get that.
I'm also a representative at that meeting.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I'm also a representative at that meeting.
Oh, okay. Well, are you on there as for the,
Housing.
Housing.
yeah, but as a representative for the,
Historical
oh my
Society?
gosh, the Historical
No.
Preservation Group, correct?
No.
No.
It was in this meeting that anyway, no.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I thought we were only sending one person to each one.
No,
So,
there's-
well, that's great.
Actually, 2 members of each. We have, we
Well, who
have,
was the other person for the economic one? Because I've been the only one to
well,
go
I
to
guess
one.
we have council members, and I'm sorry, Jason. I think you are the only one. But we had
Okay.
2 for housing. Yeah.
Okay, that's fantastic. See, Judy, I had no idea. Right?
I get
I'm
around.
the chair. I'm chair, and
So-
I don't even know what the hell.
Commissioner Jarosh could be a backup. I'm happy to ask,
No, as long as we have somebody there,
Yeah,
as long as we are
okay.
confirmed to have somebody there, I'm happy. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that we actually have
we
somebody
do,
from the
and-
Planning Commission present, and it sounds like we will. so
Commissioner
that's fine.
Jarosh has faithfully attended every meeting, so yes.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine. Okay. Goodness gracious, I'm sorry. It is after 11 here in New York right now, so I'm sorry. I'm trying to clean things up because my dad's gone to bed, and it's kind of a thing here. So anyways, Anything else for Don on that?
I have, again, on the housing needs, and when we're talking about public outreach, I still haven't seen any public-facing advertisement of those meetings, either the housing or the economic. I mean, we all got emails, those of us that are on committees and commissions, but what's happening with that? No signage, no social media?
I'm not sure about the social media piece of this. I will be talking to Jamie Stickle tomorrow. She's returning, and we'll be asking that question about, blasting that out so that the goal is not to limit this at all. I mean, that's not the goal here. I mean, it's the opposite. So let me follow.
But you can't do that without public outreach, right? So
That's true. I mean, I think, part of that is, I think we, obviously the October 19th is going to be, the joint session is clearly going to be one of those. It's well advertised, and that is a forum where I think the public can actually get a lot of information versus the discussion. People are welcome to attend the advisory committee meetings, but I think that, in terms of that process, to your point.
yeah, I'm not picking on you. I think the city did a great job advertising the dog park open house, but I haven't seen any public-facing information about these two meetings at all, and one's tomorrow, right? So
Yes.
I know Jamie's been out too.
To your point, though, but I think that is a critical element, and we're working on it, so noted.
Okay, all right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess we've kind of melded item number 7 of our agenda together with item number 6, and that is any items of interest and guidance from the Planning Commission. Is there anything from the Planning Commissioners? For myself, I will say that, and this is not to try and pick on anybody, but this is the second meeting that I have been on Zoom, and there's been technical difficulties. And this, like I said, if you're listening to me in the booth there, this is not, I'm not picking on anybody, but I think we need to put a concerted effort in to make sure that this does not happen at future city planning or planning commission meetings. And if there are things being done to the chamber because like I said, it worked just fine on Wednesday when I tuned in for that meeting. But I think in the future, if folks know that I understand that the dog park thing is going to be a big deal, but I don't appreciate things being moved around and such that impact the ability for us to have our meetings in a timely manner. So if there can be some sort of note that in the future, if things are being moved around and stuff, that we need to do some checks and stuff to make sure everything's all up and running before the meeting, I think we need to add that to the list of things to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so noted. And tonight was not a stellar example of that, so apologies to that.
It's fine. I just I know that think bugs are still getting worked out, but to me it's like, well, other things work pretty well, but it seems like the Planning Commission, kind of things happen. So if we could tighten that up, that would be great. Anything else from folks?
I would just add that every HLC meeting that I host has had the similar problem. Our last meeting, we kept the consultant on hold for over half an hour on Zoom for the same reason.
Okay.
It really, it doesn't make the city look good.
Well, and I know we have a tech group now, and so if they need to get involved or whatever, I think we need to hammer that down for the future. Is there anything else?
Any updates on the Walnut Street extension and Barlow?
The Walnut Street extension, I do know that the access permit for ODOT, the submittal of that is being prepared. I don't have a time of arrival for that, but I do know it's close to submission. I want to put that down as a follow-up item. We are also wanting to know what that is as well. We don't, we have 2 consultants working on that, and we will put that on as a follow-up item. I believe it's very close. Barlow and 99. There's continued work by Clackamas County on looking at those. I need to follow back up with Steve Williams at Clackamas County to see what their kind of next steps are in this process. I do know that the county will also be doing a parallel process to us doing their own transportation system plan. We are planning to be part of that. The county's been a good partner. And so I will follow up with Steve Williams to see what I can find out as well on what is their next step on that, and are they planning to move that into design before they go into the transportation system plan, or are they planning to vet that through the transportation system plan? What is that process? It wasn't clear to city staff on the timing of that, other than they have solutions that are conceptual, but I don't have any more information to share until I receive that back from Steve.
Well, hopefully they don't have to wait on us to get our TSP done for them to move on that.
There won't be any overlap on that. That's completely in the county, and there's really no bearing. That issue, the traffic problem there at Barlow, and it exists, and they're aware of that, and they are planning to solve it. I think there probably is a financial component that I'm guessing is their bigger issue, which is how much is that going to cost, and do they have all the revenue? Is what my guess is. So I'll report back on that as well.
Okay, anything else from folks? And I just want to say, I'm sorry I spaced out Gordon. I'm not saying, if you need more tools or something to make sure that you're not running around like a madman trying to get this stuff running, Don and I need to be an advocate for you for fixing that for future meetings.
I think there's Commissioner Patton, there's more to, I thank you for that, because I mean, we need the staff to be involved more too. So there's follow up on this.
I have no problem sending emails to Scott, as you can tell.
Okay.
I don't always get a reply back, but I know where his office is. Okay, so with that, is there anything for the good of the order? If not, I will go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
It's been, is there a second?
Second?
It's been moved by Commissioner Jarosh, by Commissioner Ewert to adjourn tonight's meeting. Is there any, we'll just move forward with a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? It is unanimous, folks. Thank you all, Canby, for tuning in to tonight's fantastic meeting, and hopefully we will see you with a quorum on October 10th.